in the last decade, even more so in the last 5 years, having continuous glucose monitors. And I think people are familiar with these now from TV commercials. 5 years ago, a newly diagnosed patient would walk in and we'd start talking about continuous glucose monitors, and 90% of people didn't know what we were talking about. Now, almost all of them have heard of them and often have a family member or know somebody who's wearing one. So that's been a huge advance. And so you can put these little devices the size of a quarter on, and it'll read your glucose values every 5 to 15 minutes. Additionally, then you can set alarms. So if you're going low, going high, it can alert you. It can alert you you're about to go low to prevent problems. That data can also go up to the cloud and to say your parents' cell phone. So if you've got a first grader who's got diabetes in school, you can see what's going on with their glucose values. Second thing that's happened to improve care, and we've had insulin pumps for decades, but now with the connection of the continuous glucose data that can go to the pump, and then the pump having an algorithm that helps guide delivery of insulin. So if there's a prediction that you're going to go low, it can stop insulin delivery until you start coming back up. Likewise, if you're starting to drift a little bit higher, it can give a little bit more insulin. These systems still require user involvement in the sense that one thing in particular is that people need to give a bolus dose or a mealtime dose before they eat to match up to the carbohydrates, the food that's coming in. Otherwise, you go up and down or oscillate because the insulin takes about 15 minutes to start working, peak effect in 60 to 90 minutes. So you're not able to completely replicate what physiology is like if you don't have type 1 diabetes, but it's much, much better. And so that's been one of the big advances. But you can imagine if you're someone with type 1 diabetes, back to your question why it's so hard, every time you eat, you have to think about, okay, how much is that? What do I need to do? How do I what dose do I give? It's made it easier with the technology, but it's still a burden. Another thing is that exercise is still a big challenge. Now, having said that, there are people who are very successful athletes with type 1 diabetes. However, they have to put quite a bit of thought in to make sure they're not going too high and not going too low with exercise. So there's still a lot of challenges, a lot of burden. And like I said, you don't get to say, I'm not taking care of my type 1 diabetes today, because then some bad things can happen. Right now, there's discrete insulin pumps and CGM, continuous glucose monitors. There's some companies that just make one or the other. There is one company that makes both, but even then, it's two insertions. One of the challenges is if you have insulin, if you're delivering insulin very close to where you're measuring glucose, that might affect the reading. And I think because people with diabetes would prefer, mostly having one insertion instead of two. And that research is being done, because that'd be nice to just have one insertion instead of two, but there's still some technical challenges that those haven't made their way to the market yet.